Hello.
Hi, Meenakshi. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I lost 4 hours of work
Oh
on this.
no.
I was working on it last night, and then something happened today.
Oh
Just when I
no.
thought I was about finished,
Darn it.
and it just it went into a kind of loop,
Yeah?
and I just lost all the changes I had made. And I
Oh
have
no.
autosave. Well, I had to redo them, of course,
Yes.
but
Oh my
uh,
goodness.
but that really threw me for a
I
loop.
bet.
But I just told myself I meant it to be interactive. It's going to be even
Yes,
more
exactly.
interactive. So it's yeah, it's
Great. I love that attitude. Thank you.
well, I hope the audience does too. We'll see how it
Oh, I'm
goes.
sure they will.
I hope so, but it definitely yeah.
Great.
And how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I'm getting
Oh,
ready to
good.
go on a road trip for 10 days to North Dakota, where my mom's family is from. I've never been there, so pretty looking
Oh,
forward to
okay.
that. But
Mhm.
I'll be out of the office for about a week and a half. So,
Oh, that is nice though. Have a
yeah,
wonderful trip.
thank you.
Yeah, might have. I don't know whether I've ever been to North Dakota. Mhm.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, I've not been to that many
states?
states. Yeah.
Mm-mm. Me either, really.
Mhm.
Thank you for joining the project management user group. We'll go ahead and get started in a few minutes.
And it can be really interactive if it's just the four of
Yes,
us.
exactly.
Yes. Mhm.
We are having list serve issues, so the reminder
Oh,
email was not sent out like it usually is. So it
oh,
is being recorded so folks can go back and look at it in the future if they want to. So, and it's totally fine if we don't take up the whole time either. So,
yeah, that's good.
mhm.
Hi, Chelsea.
Hello.
Hello. I don't know if I've ever seen this meeting so small before.
Right? I
I feel like
know.
we should have brought coffee and donuts or something. I don't know.
Well, we still have a minute.
Yep. We have folks join in.
Oh, well.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hello.
We'll go ahead and get started in a couple minutes. Hello. We'll get started in a couple minutes. Give it one more minute. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to, on behalf of the Oregon Project Management Advisory Board, welcome to our Project Management User Group presentation. My name is Amy Croucher, Chair of the OPMAB, and I will be facilitating our meeting today. We'd like to start with a few housekeeping items. As you may have noticed, this meeting is being recorded, so please mute your phone or PC if not speaking to help reduce any background noise. And if you're not speaking, you're encouraged to remain off camera. A link to the meeting resources will be shared shortly after today's session and posted on the DAS YouTube channel and OPMAB website. We'd like to keep this presentation interactive, so if you have any questions or comments, please raise your hands or place your comments in the chat, and Meenakshi will respond throughout the presentation. Also, if you're interested in business analyst processes, the Business Analyst Networking Group meets during months in which PMUG does not meet. For more information, visit the BANG website, and we'll post that in the chat in a little bit. The Agile Community of Practice is also an OPMAB initiative and meets every month or so for information. Their website will also be posted in the chat. You're also welcome to share with your colleagues and are encouraged to spread the word on our PMUG Wednesday sessions. I'm pleased to host this session presented by Meenakshi Rao, PhD, who is currently part of the State of Oregon's Data Governance and Transparency team. In her role as data equity consultant, she works with agencies to help them embed data equity into their data governance practices. In her decades-long career, she has worked in the private and public sectors, as well as academia. She has been consistently surprised and intrigued by how teams are organized and collaborate. She looks forward to an interactive talk and discussion on teams and collaboration. Without further ado, please take it away, Meenakshi.
Thanks, Amy, and thank you all for showing up for, you have no idea what I'm going to talk about, I guess. So I do hope, so this talk is, I do think it's best if there is interaction. So please speak up. There is anytime, or put your comments in the chat. I will tell you, I show my age. I'm not of the digital generation, which means I do not multitask very well, or I don't even pretend to multitask very well. So anyway, so today I'm going to be, the title of my talk is Making Common Cause, Building a Dispersed Collaborative Network of Teams. I gave it the title Making Common Cause because the kind of team that I'm going to be describing, and I hope you will join me in this discussion as we go through it, is really how do you build something when all you have to, in common is a vision? Is a vision, you could somewhat call it a dream, that's you.
It helps explain why you've had finances been great throughout, and I'm just like, what?
Okay. That was interesting. But yes, we are collaborative. So I got an insight into something I wasn't sure I would get an insight to today. But yes, we are making, so that's the reason for my title, Making Common Cause. So let's begin by talking about teams. By just a show of hands, how many of you have worked in teams? I expect everybody. Okay. Yeah, just checking. Yeah. So there might be a few. So I'm seeing, 10 out of the 17 or so people here. There might be a few stars, but most of us have worked in teams. But now let me ask you, what is a team? How do you recognize a team? What does a team mean? And you can either come off mute. Okay. I'm seeing 2 hands up, and I do not know whether that is because you're part of a team or you have a comment.
It
Okay,
looks like we.
Kristen. Okay. It's okay. We'll give Kristen a moment. And so I see that Amina has said one thing that a team has, a characteristic of a team, is that it has a goal. It has a common goal. Anybody else? When you think of a team, what comes to your mind? You've all worked in teams. Okay.
Communication.
Communication, yes. And of course, a team starts with people, right? You've got to have people. Then the people have a common goal. Usually a team has resources. The resources could be skills. It could be skills, it could be knowledge, it could actually be money, it could be other IP. Teams usually have the goal is usually a project, might have a timeline. Mostly you have a timeline, even if it is kind of ambitious, even if it's just nebulous. And most teams, because they have a goal, because they have a project, they also have metrics for success. Teams may need to, so they need to have communications. They have to communicate both within the team and sometimes outside the team. And of course, all good things. Any time you're doing a project, you need to have risk management, communication, and be aware of what is happening and how you need to adapt and all that. So teams are fairly complex and powerful in a way, because teams can do work that more than a single individual can complete by themselves individually. So still talking about teams, now I want to ask you, how many of you have worked in what you would consider a good team? Okay. Two people. Okay. 3, 4. Okay. So many fewer of you have worked in a good team than those of you have worked in a team. For those of you who've not worked in good teams, as well as those of you who have worked in good teams, how do you know that your team is good? What makes a team good? Yeah, Chelsea?
I would say communication would be the most important one. If you
Communication.
have a flow of communication, then obviously things will move along.
Okay, communications. So I'm seeing from Carly, more bad teams than good, but a few have been great. What is a characteristic of a great team? Carly, if you don't mind coming off mute. Okay, clear communication, well-functioning dynamics, and able to reach KPIs goals. Carly, do you want to?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I put it in the chat, just ability to accomplish and meet goals. Yeah, so really if you can get to that end line. Although sometimes a poor functioning team can still meet goals. I think it just kind of depends on what your definition of a good team is, right? So are you talking about it from that end perspective, which is, hey, we were able to get the work done. I don't really like any of those people and I don't want to work with them again, but we got it done. Or those were the best people ever and we had such a good time, we accomplished nothing. So I feel like there's
right.
different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think one will take a balanced view and say a good team made you feel good about being part of the team and part of what you did. So yeah, it looks like people have worked in teams, and the focus is on communication, on achieving those goals, on being supportive, right? That's what I'm hearing from all of you, and this is what I had put down. Have you worked in a team where everybody had a different interpretation of the goal? Just curious. I've been on some teams like that. Yes. How does that feel? Yes, it is kind of interesting. You feel kind of, I feel very scattered in that situation. And then people talked about the team dynamics. And in a good team, I have worked with very professional teams where I would never be friends with a person. They had such different beliefs, etc., from me. But we had a common goal and we were professional and we worked together. And we accomplished it. And we did not want to kill each other at the end of it, which is also important, right? Because you want to live to work on another team. And so as all of you have mentioned, there is a common goal, and we are all driven towards this common goal. And we can put our personalities and our personal whatever aside to get to that common goal. A good team promotes problem solving. It promotes creativity. It provides a safe space for us to experiment, and we don't fail. If we are part of a good team, we don't fail because we have a support system. And the nicest part, at least for me, is when you accomplish something as a team, we can celebrate together. We celebrate ourselves, we celebrate our accomplishments, we celebrate the team. And that is what a good team feels like. And I think we all have that same thing. I just want to kind of point these things out as we go forward. Now, teams can be, when you think of a team, for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to describe two kinds of team organizations. So one team I call the STAR, and the STAR team. And the term STAR team comes from Ali Mirza Khalili, who's the administrator of the air division when I worked at DEQ. And he described the air quality teams as STAR teams, where every member is a star, right? They are in their domain, they do their thing that they are good at, and then there is a manager kind of, or a coordinator. It doesn't have to be a manager. Quite often in the places where we work, it is a manager, not a coordinator. And all the coordination is through this person. So these kinds of teams, you have one manager, and you can have multiple members of that team, as many as that manager can handle, and they are all kind of doing their things, and they do not have that much communication with each other. All communication is through the manager. So this is kind of a STAR team. And most of the work that we do in most organizations, a team by itself is not enough. So a team has to network with other teams. And so then one potential organization is a network of stars. Now, I want you to think about the pros and cons of this organization. I think this is, from my experience in state governments, which is about 7 years, this is the kind of team we have. So I would like to, and again, I'm going to pause. Does that seem familiar? A team organization of stars where everybody does their own thing. The coordination is all done through the manager. And I'm giving an extreme case, obviously, just for the purposes of this talk. So how many of you feel that you have been in teams that can be called star teams? And how did it feel like? What's the pros and cons of this team? Yeah, Chelsea?
We had legislation pass a bill that directly affected a lot of Oregonians, and there were 2 leads, and then they had to pull in different people with different expertise. So we were working with, I think, up to like 15 people at one point, and it was a 2.5-year project. We not only exceeded, but we surpassed all of the goals that we put in place, but also we surpassed legislation's expectations, and then it's also continued to be implemented and then opened a lot of other doors. So I think that was probably the coolest one. If that answers your question.
So that what Chelsea's describing is really one of the strengths. You can pull in a lot of expertise together. You can have big teams because this coordinator can handle big teams, the manager role. And when you bring these diverse things together, these diverse areas of expertise, people together, you can accomplish a lot. So that's definitely a huge plus of STAR teams. Anybody else? Anybody see a negative or another positive? Amina says, in extreme cases, it can feel like everyone is in their own world. Yes. Solo operators, yes. Sometimes they get the case of everybody's going in their own direction, and the manager may not be able to handle it, keep everybody coordinated. You can have some divas. There definitely. So here's what I came up with just for us to, and here's Jamie has a con. Cons can include much slower decision making if the nodes or employees aren't, yes, that is very true. There is a communication issue here. So the nice part of it is its team size. You get this variety of domain expertise. From a manager's point of view, a coordinator's point of view, work is divided up into neat little bundles, and you don't have to worry, right? It's not messy. It's much easier to manage on paper, not in real life. But the downside of this is really the manager. The manager has to be a unicorn. If you're sometimes people are, you get the right people. There are lots of logistics. The manager is the one who does everything. I'm calling him the manager because I'm steeped in state government now. But the coordinator has to be able to bridge all these different domains of expertise, has to manage all these personal issues. If you have a bunch of divas, you've got to manage their personalities, their needs, their issues. You have to be the communication hub. You have to manage a lot. It's a lot of different things to be able to do all at once. Now, somebody mentioned people going off in different directions and the sense of isolation. I'm calling that a weak mission alignment. Because people are communicating indirectly, their link to the mission is a little bit weak. Because they're not directly participating and everything is going through a layer. And then if you're 8 levels deep into it, your alignment with the mission can get a little bit off center, so to speak. So that's kind of one kind of team organization. The other team organization I'm calling a peer organization, because here people may be experts, but they are peers. They're communicating with each other. So they're not depending on a coordinator or a hub. They're talking to each other. But there's a very heavy load on communications. It has its advantages, but there's a very heavy load. If you have a 3-member team, there have to be 3 channels of communication, so they're all talking to each other. When you have 6 members, you need 15 channels, and so on and so forth. There's the little bit of math if you want to calculate the number of links, which is very simple. So based on this, this is about 3 decades ago, Jeff Bezos came up with the 2 pizzas teams rules. So there's an optimum size for a peer team. And Jeff Bezos said the team should be no bigger than can have lunch on 2 large pizzas, which has been interpreted in the software world as being anywhere from 4 to maybe 10 people. 10 people don't get that much pizza, but they get some pizza anywhere. So when you're thinking of a peer group, a peer team, it doesn't scale up like a team does. So again, this team organization, a peer team, can be networked into a group of peer teams, and it can be peer teams. You can have a hierarchy of them, and just like there are certain advantages and disadvantages to this team. And again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how many of you have actually worked in what could be a good peer team, where you communicated with other people because that was the way you did work, not because you were socializing. Chelsea, yeah. Do you want to say anything about that experience, Chelsea, or has anybody else worked on a peer team? Okay. Chelsea, do you want to, Amina, Chelsea, do you want to say anything about how that experience was?
I have done both. It's gone terribly, and it's also gone really excellent.
Yes.
It's a bit of like you toss cards on a table, and if you get a great hand, you're solid, and if you get a terrible hand, it makes for a lot of work.
Okay. So both teams have the advantages. And Amina? Okay. Amina said she agrees with that. Okay. Yeah. Do you want to say anything? Okay. You want to add anything?
No, I just agree with what she said. Yeah.
Okay. It can be good. It can be bad. Okay. It can. So the things about, now to tell you, I worked in software for many years, and most software teams tend to be on the peer side. The team organization, at least at the Leaf Nodes, is on the peer side. And of course, in state government, I found it's mostly on the STAR side of things. And I find that a good peer team is very agile and it's proactive because you're always discussing your tasks with your team. In a good peer team, the task doesn't go to an individual, it goes to the team. It may be the prime responsibility of a certain person, but it goes to the team. And because it's seen as a team task, it also gives a lot of backup and resilience, right? If something happens to a person, there's also continuity in the knowledge. And it's also a very effective way for approaching multidisciplinary problems. You can do that in the STAR team. And as Chelsea said, they pulled, for the legislation, they pulled a diverse set of expertise together. But when you have a small team, which is talking about the different expertise, they all build their common knowledge. They all become a little bit better. The negative, of course, is it doesn't scale up very well, and it's challenging developing a team culture. The team culture becomes more important because there is no manager and everybody's not going, unlike the STAR team, all the communications is mediated through the coordinator there. And you can have your own diva, but you live in your own bubble and do your own work. In peer teams, you can have much stronger mission alignment, especially if they're not totally hierarchical. Because people are talking, and that sort of reinforces the task that the team has to do, and because these these teams will also be talking to other teams who are that tightly committed, it sort of reinforces the mission of the team. So these are just some of the things about two kinds of team organizations that I have seen. I have no idea whether that's covers it all or not. What we see in real life, of course, is we do see a network of teams. Usually it's hybrid. As in state government, we may lean towards more STAR teams, but that doesn't mean we don't have peer teams. And so that's a good thing to remember. And why we need this network of teams is because they are much more effective to accomplish big things. But for the teams to be effective, they have to know, they have to have the mechanisms for communication and for collaboration, right? Because they're doing work that needs to fit together. And how do we make an effective, there's one thing to make an effective team, but it takes more work to create an effective network of teams. And so one of the things that is interesting to look at is how do we create a network of teams that invests in people, process, that is empowered. How can we use people, process, and technology to create effective network of teams? Yeah. So that's kind of what I hope to be talking about. And I'm going to talk about only a small sliver of this particular topic, which is huge. But to actually talk about it, I'm going to begin by taking a digression into tech history. In 1997, and then again in 1999, Eric Raymond wrote a book, an essay and then a book, The Cathedral and the Bazaar. In the Cathedral and the Bazaar. And yeah, I'm interested. How many of you have heard of this, Cathedral and the Bazaar? Okay, it's my software roots showing. So it is, as you can see, it's quite old. But in this book, what he does is he examines how two different ways, he compares two different ways of developing operating systems. One that he called the cathedral model, which is a very traditional software development model where you have close-knit teams of experts and they work together and they have resources and timelines and they build this product, an operating system. And remember, in the good old days, operating systems were free. You paid for the hardware, not for the operating system. And so they were giving this away for free, but they were developing it in this model. But around that same time, around the 1980s or somewhere there around, there was a new way of developing operating systems, the Linux, the open source way, which began. There were other products that were developed before Linux, but Linux is what really kind of brought it on the map. And the Linux way is really you can call it a team, maybe it's more like a network. It's very loose collaboration amongst self-identified members. You can say, oh, I'm interested, I'll do this bit. And it's very loose. Some people can work on it for almost all their professional lives. Other people will come in, do one thing and move away. And so it's a very different model for developing the same result. So the cathedral and the bazaar. So let's kind of look a little bit on the cathedral model. So the organization then for these teams, it's a team of experts, small, tightly knit, and very tight communications, right? They're all kind of talking. So that small, tightly knit groups of experts who are working on this product, it's structured, it's hierarchical. So that means we do have top-down decision-making. We might have communication going from bottom up. Decision-making direction is top-down. So again, there are resources which are also controlled by the top. And the idea is that you're going to build an operating system that will last. It's not something that you will change today and then again tomorrow and then make another bug fix. This was like, you take all the changes, you evaluate them, and that is what goes into it. And because of the way it's structured, it's very strong mission alignment. They're all working towards the same goal. And Raymond sort of compared this to the way cathedrals were built. Cathedrals take a long time to build. And you have to work off the same blueprint. Otherwise, you're not going to get a cathedral, right? Everybody has to know what they're doing. They have to focus and they have to be expert in what they're doing. So that was the cathedral model. And so this was the model for the traditional model for developing operating systems and other software. The bazaar model is the Linux model or the open source model, loosely grouped. It's like a bazaar, right? You can go to a bazaar. There could be different stands at different times. You'll have different things in the bazaar. There is no central place that says, oh, we are going to do this thing at this time. A vendor may show up for 3 hours, another vendor might be there for the 6 hours of the market. It's all very fluid. And there are no central resources, or minimal central resources to keep this market going. And and the decision making is fairly individual. I will go to the market today. I will go set up a stall, or I will go shop at the market today. It's all very individual. So there is this weak mission alignment. Going to the market is not strong, and the vendors are not talking to each other and say, we are going to cooperate to do this thing. But somehow a market happens. And interestingly, if you look back in history, markets have been happening sometimes in the same place for decades. If you look at the old standard, the markets in the old European towns, they've been happening for decades. So how do you build I'm jumping ahead here, but yeah, so that's the interesting dynamic. How does a bazaar actually operate? How does it come to be? And that's what Raymond examined in his book. And he gave us some lessons and that I have sort of translated. He gave it in very software speak, and I have sort of put it in more general speak. So he says, if you're going to have a project that is structured like a bazaar, you're not going to get it right the first time. So you have to go in. I call it, you have to go in with humility. You have to go in with an open mind. You have to learn. You have to adapt. And remember that the bazaar has a life independent of you, the contributor, the team, the network member or the team member. So when you have done your part in the bazaar, in this case, in building your operating system or your product, make sure that you hand it off. When you are ready to go, hand off your responsibility so that the bazaar can continue. And here's the part of the agility and the quick turn, the responsiveness. The bazaar serves a purpose. You serve some people, so you need to listen to them and make sure that you give them what they want. So the model is you're always listening, you're learning, and you're kind of incorporating that learning and giving, and that affects what you're doing. And it reduces the difference between users and producers. So treat your users as your collaborators. And if you do that, you get much more effective problem solving because you're showing your users what you've built and they will tell you, does it work or not? So you're cutting off a whole bunch of, debugging time later. And the other thing is, if you have a large enough base of collaborators, it's the wisdom of the crowd. When you have a problem, somebody in this crowd will know how to fix it. And the other thing, it's phrased very much in terms of software. Focus on effective data and data structures. Algorithms can be reinvented, and the way to think about it is focus on the basics and invent the process for the basics. Right? Don't get so caught up in process that you forget what it is for, what the purpose is. And the last one is very important for us, especially in state government, to remember. It takes an effective communications medium and an effective coordinator to harness the wisdom of the network. So this is an important point, that this kind of dispersed collaboration requires the technology to support it. So as technology advances, you can build on it. I mean, I'm kind of flipping it around and say, as technology advances, it gives you new ways of organizing and building teams. Leverage it. So that's kind of, he has 19 of these. I've only given you a few of those. And I've summarized them in the value, the mindset that you need to bring when you want to participate in a bazaar-like project. You have to be humble. You have to be open-minded. You have to have a long-term focus that this is going to continue with me or without me. You also have to be collaborative. Collaborative not in I'll collaborate with this expert or that expert. So you're going to collaborate with this network. You have to be inclusive, right? It takes different kinds of perspectives, different kinds of views. You have to be able to build on somebody else's work because you don't know who will have something that is useful to you that you can build on. Humble, you have to be humble. You can't think you're better than everybody else because if you think you're better than everybody else, you're not going to learn. You're going to be close-minded. You have to be informed in terms of the technologies, the trends, all those kinds of things. And you cannot be a Luddite. You have to use technology effectively. So those were the lessons and the values that I have sort of put here. I've put his full set of values here, just in case anybody's interested. And you can I've also got the links for the Cathedral and the Bazaar if you want to go look at it. I'm not sure how useful it is for somebody who didn't work in software. So I think all of us are sort of familiar with what I call cathedral projects. Would you all agree with that statement? Yeah, most projects that we do are cathedral. They are very structured. We have a team, we have a mission, we have resources, and then we go work on them. Whether we do a good job or bad job is, varies by the project. But now let's look at an example of a bazaar project. Now, I think it's a wildly successful bazaar project because I am sure all of you have heard of Wikipedia. If you haven't, I don't know which world you've been living in. So Wikipedia is an amazing example of something done with minimal resources, right? I mean, it's a nonprofit organization, lives on donations, but it's open. Anyone can contribute. There's nothing that says you've got to be an expert or you've got to meet this minimum requirement. Anybody comes in and can contribute to it. But it is also transparent. That is a huge innovation that Wikipedia has. You can go to their talk or discuss page and you can see the change history and you can roll back and you can see the infighting that might have happened before you see the version that actually comes there. It's self-organizing. There are no tightly knit teams. There might be some who decide to work on it, but that's kind of an artifact. It's not required by. It's very self. You come, you work, you don't, but they have a system that allows you to do that. And the collaboration here, you are collaborating. Doesn't seem like it, but you are actually collaborating in this work of creating that encyclopedia, this body of knowledge that is open to anybody. You're collaborating with people across space and time. You might edit a page today that has been edited by 12 people over the last 10 years or whatever. So your collaboration is across space and time, which is very powerful thing to remember. And again, the collaboration is across space and time, which means the collaborators are dispersed across space and time. And again, it's important to remember there is a weak mission alignment. There's a very strong vision alignment. All these people believe in the vision of an encyclopedia, of this body of knowledge that is free to everybody to use. That is a very strong, compelling vision. But the mission, as in, okay, this is our vision, and now we are going to take off this piece, and here are the resources, and here's the timeline, that doesn't exist. It's very much free for all. I come in, spend 3 minutes today, somebody comes in and spends 3 hours. Maybe some web pages are not worked on at all, and others are. So that, but I think all of you will agree that the Wikipedia is an amazing place. It has its problems, not saying it doesn't have its problems, and I will be the first one to admit, women, especially women scientists, are highly underrepresented. Wiki pages on women scientists are, much, much less than. But it is still an open project. So this is kind of a bizarre project that we are all familiar with. So that was the digression. So now let's come back to our teams and team organizations. So the first question is about teams. So when we have a project, how do we organize a team? When do we want to have a star? When do we have a peer? Or are there other teams to consider? And nothing is ever purely one or the other. It's usually a hybrid, but it'll lean one way or the other. And then as we connect our teams into a network, we need to understand what kind of a network do we want? Do you want a tightly knit, highly structured, cathedral kind of network? Or do we need a bazaar, just loosely structured? And then how do we build an effective network, whether it be a cathedral or a bazaar? Okay. So in this talk, I think all of you have worked in the star and peer teams, and if you think a little bit about it, and we've looked at the pros and cons as well of these two teams. So when you think a little bit about it, once you have a project, you can probably say which might be better suited for it. So I don't think we need to go into that. And all of you, as project managers, have worked with a lot of different teams. So you can probably tell me more about it. But the interesting question is, how do you recognize the network that we need? When do we need a cathedral? When do we need a bazaar? We might have some intuitive understanding, but let's try to discuss it a little bit to see whether we can flesh it out a little bit more. And then how do we build an effective network? I think we all know the cathedral model. So I will only talk a little bit about building a bazaar model of a network. And I will try to intersperse it with some things that I have learned, although I haven't really done much of a bazaar model. Okay, so any questions? Any thoughts? Any comments so far? Okay. So how do you decide whether you want a cathedral or a bazaar? So here are the things that you need to consider. What are your resources? What is the scope of your project? I mean, it's very familiar to all you project managers. What does the mission require? Like, do you have a clear-cut mission? And do you need strict alignment to it? Or the mission alignment is not that important as the vision alignment is. And then again, is this something that you want to build to last? Or is it something that needs to change and adapt as things change and adapt? So these are the questions, some of the questions that you need to look at. And so let's see. So anyway, usually in a cathedral model, you have a project. It is usually resourced, or at least resourced, if not well-resourced. So somebody has an idea, somebody's gotten the money together. And to get the money together, they couldn't go with a vision. They had to go with a mission. And once you have that mission. And then once you have a mission, you have your time, you know who's going to be impacted by it, and then you need to start building your team. So this is not going to be a cathedral model. It's going to be a bazaar model. And again, most of our projects begin this way. Somebody has an idea, they find the resources for it, say how they're going to translate it into action, this vision into some reality, and then that's how we get started. Mostly that's kind of a cathedral thing. When do we create a bazaar? When do we need a bazaar model? And this is kind of speaking from my experience, and it's fairly limited. I have seen the Linux model in Word, but I have never contributed to that. I have worked on other open data projects. When we want to create a bazaar, what we need, we usually have a compelling vision, but we are alone and we have this big vision. So resources are usually limited. There can be some resources, doesn't have to be totally starved of resources, but the resources are really not enough to get this vision off the ground. And the scope is huge in the sense, let's look at Wikipedia, right? There's a vision to create an encyclopedia of the world knowledge and to keep it up to date, right? Because when you look at encyclopedias and before the Wikipedia, you got one every decade or so, right? Updating, or they were updated on a rotating basis. These volumes were updated, then the next set of volumes were updated. So you begin with a compelling vision, so just an idea, but then you build the bazaar. Because you have people in the community that you are part of. You know your community, so you know that whether they will share in this vision or not. So that is the thing. You've come up with a vision and you know other people have shared it. So that is kind of how bazaars begin, with an idea. And not every bazaar will take off. So you have a vision. Now you want to start doing something about it. You want to build your bazaar that might hopefully adapt and last and provide value. So first thing you have to do is you have to find people who believe in your vision, who believe in this cause. So that is why I call it making common cause. Find all these people, make sure that you have this common cause, this cause together. So the first thing you have to do is, of course, find the people. A bazaar, a team, requires people. So once you've got the people, then you've got a need to set up a place where they can actually communicate and collaborate and share whatever their expertise is or whatever they can contribute. And remember, since we're talking about potentially geographically and temporally diverse people, you have to have some technology. You've got your people, you've got your spaces. Then you've got to build. Then you've got to set your norms, your guidelines for collaboration, because again, it's a diverse group of people. You have to have some norms and guidelines. To create this loosely knit group. Now you've done the organizing. Now comes the time to do something. A vision is inspirational. It's not actionable. So you've got people together. They believe in a common cause. They have this common vision, and they usually want to do something about it. So there has to be a mechanism for translating this into action. So we are not starting with a mission plan. A mission plan will emerge from this group. So that's kind of a difference between the cathedral and the bazaar model. Because this group is so big and it's big because usually when we have a vision, it's about a big thing. It's not about a tiny thing. And because our groups are likely to be diverse, we've already said they're spatially and temporally diverse, to hold that trust, to hold that people together, you need to have accountability and transparency. Nothing breaks a team apart quicker than distrust. Something happening. I do not know how that decision was made. I wasn't consulted. This impacted me. And so you have to build in accountability and transparency. And again, because it is so diverse, the group is diverse, you cannot do it after the fact. It has to be just in the way you operate. And if you want something to survive, It has to be resilient. That means no part of it can be a must-have, cannot do without. Everything is open to change, adaptation, and having somebody else contribute. So this is kind of my view. It's very idiosyncratic, so take it for what it's worth. And yeah, let me kind of, I do want it to be a little bit more, and I've been talking on and on. I wanted it to be a little bit more interactive. So what are your thoughts on building a bazaar? Can you think of a time or a place where you might want to build a bazaar?
I feel like a specific, I guess, effort that feels like a bazaar to me is we're updating our functional design documents with information that's will be used by all of the business analysts and developers for our system. And we have a group of folks who are working together to update these documents. We have it broken down into phases. So there's, there's accountability and vision and set goals for updating these documents. And we've almost got the first phase done. And we've just been collaborating together via Teams. We have a tracking spreadsheet in Excel that's in Teams. And we also hold periodic meetings to regroup and touch base. So I feel like that's a really good example of a bazaar.
Yeah, definitely a bazaar leaning. It's definitely not, oh, the mission is up front and now go ahead and do it. Yeah. Anybody else? So in my role as a data equity consultant, I have my responsibility is to embed data equity into data governance. And I am trying a bazaar model because I have zero resources. I mean, I have myself, my own time, because that's my job, but I have zero resources. And yet data governance, data equity essentially touches almost every employee and therefore indirectly every Oregonian. And so as we go through each of these steps, I've only kind of done the first part and sort of dabbled in the second. But I will tell you my experiences and my hopes as we go through it. But I would love to hear your thoughts as well. So the first thing we have to do is find the people that you have this common cause with, this common vision. And this is just like networking. So I'm not going to go too much. I think all of you know how to network, or at least have been told how to network and find it out. The only thing that I will add is when you're building a bazaar, making this common cause and trying to keep people inspired, once you meet people, you've got them interested, before you can do anything, you need a certain amount of people, right? Momentum, before you can actually start taking action. You have to do something to keep them engaged, to want them to come back. And so, and here are some suggestions that I have used. Just have social, it could be virtual social occasions for just meet and greet, and have trivia games. I mean, I have done that in the past, not in the public sector. And so I'll tell you a little bit about how I did it for the data equity work that I am doing. So I won't call it a data equity team, but there's a data equity community because it's very, very loosely knit. We don't yet even have a common vision. We just have a common word that has certain positive reactions or connotations for us. So I began with a list of people from my manager, Catherine Helms. And then I, did the whole thing, emailed them. Oh, I would love to meet with you. And we talked. And from that, and I got lots of people's names, but I found 3 other people from just this, I will call it cold calling phase, who were really passionate about data equity. and had worked in it, either as part of the job or because, they became the core team for data equity work. And it is amongst our discussions that the idea of a data equity summit came up. So, so this was like, the data equity position was new. So I've been in this position just under 2 years. I'm doing this cold calling. We come up with the suggestion, and then we said, okay, let's go for it. So talk about a bazaar. Nobody done it before. We had no idea, and we said, let's do it. But it arose from just 4 people. Now, we were 4 people. That's not enough. But we had, amongst all these people, we had lists and names of people we could reach out to. So over time, we built up a big network. So now we had these people, I had my core team who had expertise and I could rely on. And we had a lot of people who were interested, right? Because I also held listening sessions as part of being so just sent it out to everybody so that you could forward it. So I was growing my network, and then people came and I heard from them what they wanted, and used that to inform the Data Equity Summit as well. So the next thing is I had people, and we needed to set up this collaborative. Now, I will tell you this, very true, the collaboration requires the use of technology. You cannot write letters the old-fashioned way to get a modern network going, right? So you have to use technology. And a lot of technology that we use in the public sector, in our day-to-day, tasks, like email, has a lot of downsides, let's say. And we have to learn to harness our technologies so that we can effectively collaborate. And we have, I will also, so we have to harness technology, and I will add, we have to harness technology intelligently. We are not doing that. We are harnessing technology in state government. We are not harnessing it intelligently. So you use this technology to set up forums that will promote a place for people to meet, at the same time, as well as asynchronously. So you have, which is why the equivalent of a Slack or Teams channel is important, because people can leave comments and have these asynchronous discussions. Having a repository, having places where people can post events, articles or books that they have shared. It's very important to have these things set up. But these things have to be set up. These forums have to be set up so that access is easy. It cannot, remember, everybody's doing it, and I'm talking mostly when people are doing it, they're doing it on their own time, right? Low resources. Very few people are paid to do it. In the Linux world, there are definitely people who are paid to do it, but there are very few of those. They're doing it on their own time. You can't add friction. When I mean friction, means discomfort, make it difficult for them to access these things. And make it difficult for them to either find the resources that you're posting, that's the thing. Don't ever do it. Do not paste 3 pages of links. Organize it, and review it periodically. Dead links are the enemy of anybody. Like somebody is perusing, and I'm giving myself as an example. If I'm perusing a list of resources and I come across 3 dead links, I think it's all defunct and it's not worth my attention. So that's what I mean by set up forums that avoid frustration or friction. It's very easy to set up a forum. It requires much more work to make sure that there's no frustration or friction in doing what you need to do. Yeah, and this is the part where I have become frustrated, because the technology just won't let me. The technology, the way we've structured it, just has not allowed me to set up something where people can actually collaborate. SharePoint, I don't care who's listening, is not a collaboration platform. We are not using technology intelligently. Okay. You've got your people, you've got your collaboration spaces, you've reduced frustration and friction. Now you have to set up the norms for collaboration. This has to come from the community. And because the community, this network of people that you've got together for this common cause is constantly changing, or at least the time people can spend on it is constantly changing. You have to build these rules together, post them where everybody, make them available so that everybody can see it, input it, collaborate to it, adhere to them. But you also have to make sure that you periodically review them, right? Because your community composition is changing. And we don't tend to do that. We have a charter and then the charter just remains. We don't review it. We don't see. So that's kind of an important piece. And the other important piece of it differs from a cathedral model is that what comes from the community. You can start with a draft, but it has to have everybody's input. And that's why a good coordinator, as Raymond says in his rules, is very important. Use the technology. And so the inclusiveness is really important when you're building up your guidelines for collaboration. And when you're doing it, remember, it's happening across space and time. One way to cover time is to do it periodically. And periodically could be every year or two. And across, and it could also be, you'd have to do it virtually, you can do it in person, all those, you can do it in multiple ways. You have to do it in multiple ways so that people like to interact in different ways. So some people don't mind virtual or prefer virtual. Some people just like to be really asynchronous. They will comment on a document, but they will never have a discussion about it. Other people will never read a document and provide comment, but if you have a discussion about it, they will show up. So you have got to have a diversity of ways of pulling people in, as well as remembering that people will be doing it asynchronously, and some will be remote, so you can't depend on. You have to be prepared to call in moderators or facilitators, because as a diverse, large group, you will run into fractious problems. And so you might as well be prepared and prepare the network to the extent that you can, right? Yeah, we are a large group of people. We are collaborating. We are not expected to or required to believe, do exactly think in lockstep with each other, but we do have to agree to disagree professionally. And we will not, because of our own, leanings or ego, come in the way of work. So that's kind of has to be part of the collaboration, the guidelines, as well as the implementation. I think that is useful, not just for the cathedral, but also for not just for the bazaar, but also for the cathedral model, and just for us in our everyday lives, is we need to develop working relationships before we enter crisis mode, right? Or before we have to have the ability to work with different people, different kinds of people, and we have to develop that as a skill, and not kind of on that particular team, on that particular job. So it's kind of a background task that we should be doing to keep up our, collaboration relationship skills alive. We don't do that, right? We are in a team and we figure out how to work with that team. Then we have to go to a different team. Then we learn all over again for that particular team. But there are ways of developing those collaboration skills, which can be fun because they're, low risk, low commitment, low risk. And those some of those things, and one is building a network. Organizing those kinds of things is useful to keep your network aware of each other and interested and all that kind of stuff. And reading groups and discussion groups are great because people can drop in, they can voice their opinions, and there's no risk. And for the more tech-oriented people, and again, I haven't organized a hackathon here. It's been my dream to organize a hackathon here in state government in Oregon, but maybe one day. But workshops and conferences are other ways. And again, so building these norms, learning how to work with each other, all these things are important. Celebration is very important. There's nothing like a celebration to bring people together and to cheer for us, for ourselves, and for each other. And again, when it comes to the data equity work, and I will also, I also was a data architect at DAQ before coming into this current job, where I was started the data team. Thanks, Amina. Amina kept that going for the 2 years after I left. And we definitely wrote a charter collectively. It takes time. It takes time. But it is useful because all of us saw ourselves in it. And we got that. And that was one of the things. And then the other thing that I did both at DEQ and here as part of the data equity work is at DEQ, I did workshops. I began the R learning sessions there, which were again carried on by Amina and mostly Amina. Erin was left shortly after I left. And here, for us, I'm organizing the Data Equity Quarterly Forums where people come, and it's very discussion-oriented. Somebody speaks, but we leave a lot of time for discussion after it. So kind of, this is a way of building a common vocabulary, common interests, and getting people to discuss and talk and share ideas. So that's kind of establishing norms of collaboration. And I think some of you probably are doing it intuitively, but it's not really seen as a necessity in a cathedral model, but it is important for a bazaar model of interaction. Okay. Now we've had all this fun, right? Meeting, greeting, doing things together, celebrating, just being there or whatever. Then it's time to do some real work, right? You have a vision, you want to translate that vision. And again, you've got to remember you have a diverse network. So you will probably get a diverse set of tasks that are going to be taken on. So the coordinator or the coordinators of this have to make sure, and this has to be a negotiation, to align those goals, to make sure that they all align with the mission. So some can be more bigger, smaller, align with the mission, align with the vision, and align with the availability of people, because people's time is flexible. So help them pick projects, right-sized projects for the time that they can commit to. Because you have to be transparent, and because people love being part of something, of a team or a community that is actually doing something, right? Tracking progress is a great way of showing it. It's transparent, but it's also a very visible sign of we are doing something. Here's our vision, and here's what we've accomplished. So tracking progress is, I think, really important to keep that inspiration, that momentum going. And again, celebrations are very important. When you're not getting paid for it, when you're doing it on your own time, you're out of your own interest, that celebration, the recognition of the work, the recognition of your peers, the support and recognition of your peers is really important. So always make sure to celebrate. And being accountable and transparent, I think here, I will just say this, you have to be accountable and transparent. Use technology to embed it in your systems. I would say, I love GitHub for version control, for tracking. In the software world, we always had configuration and version control and the bugs, right? And you can apply the bug tracking system even to documents, right? I am changing this because, so there's an audit trail, anybody can go back and you can have a discussion about it. You can, just like they do on Wikipedia in the discussion channel, you can make an edit, tell you why, then somebody else comes along, they disagree, they can take it out. You see who's made that change that you disagree with, go call them, Zoom call or whatever, virtual call, and say, oh, why are you doing this? If it gets fractious, call in the moderator. So that's, we use technology. You can do it all with technology, just for embedding it. And again, as you're designing your accountability and transparency framework, remember that your decision-making process has to be available both spatially and temporally, right? So keep that geography in mind. We have become used to thinking of geography. We are less used to thinking about across time. As a state, we only have 2 time zones. One of the time zones very few people fall into, so that's not an issue. But we are quite often in a bazaar model kind of collaborating with the generations, professional generations, so 5 years later that come after us. And that is a little bit, and the only way to address that is document, document, document. So that's kind of very important for accountability and transparency, and also for making sure that for resiliency, as you will see in the next slide. And again, as part of accountability, you have to assess that you're being true to your vision and that you're not going astray. And if you are going astray, you do need to kind of course correct. That is really important. And sometimes you can get very inward looking. So it's always good to get outside feedback and constructive criticism. So that's kind of this piece of it. The last and the most, I will say, if you really want to do a big project and you want it, a bazaar is a need, it serves a need, and you want it to survive for, decades, centuries. And if you're doing work, something like data equity, it might change what it looks like, with AI coming, what we need to do will change. But that concept of using data and using it so that it's used for good, for thriving for all people, it's not a concept that's going to change. So you want to develop structures that will be resilient. Resilient being that they will recover from a shock to the system. There are a couple of ways of building resilience. One of them is just strength, right? Make it very strong or rigid, like a cathedral. But that's not a model that fits well with our bazaar. Our strength comes from flexibility, adaptability. So make sure that you remain flexible and adaptable. We can, and anything can ossify. Anything can get, kind of, ossified, stratified, whatever, stuck in its way. Have to avoid that. So redundancy is the other way of building resilience. So if something fails, then there is a backup for it. And so, I look at resiliency in like 3 ways. How do we make the people resilient? The people who are a very important part of this network. And we make them resilient by making sure that they do not ossify, right? Their skills don't ossify, which means we always help them provide opportunities as a network. And this could be through, to develop their skills, keep them updated. If they want to transfer to a different set of skills or career, that possibility should still be available to them. Mentoring is a very important piece. And, now I'm talking of really huge networks. And as a state, which is at the state government level, we have to work to develop the pipeline. For instance, if we want more state government workers, we need to be doing outreach and service to schools as well as universities, so people can see what they do and we can influence what is taught in the curriculum. So the focus on the people, very important. Help them keep their skills updated and give them work that engages them. And that is true whether you're doing it in a bazaar or a cathedral. Our work, the tasks that we are working on, needs to also be resilient, right? And then, we have the security and backup because work creates intellectual property, and we can use technology to back up, which gives you the redundancy. And that's kind of a very mechanical, simple way of doing it. More important is that when there is work in progress, there should be plans for succession and for backup and succession planning, especially for your critical ones. Document. Makes you resilient, because when you lose something, and of course have duplicates. I mean, when I say duplicates, have redundant copies. And it can be, if you're using something like GitHub for your document repo, make sure that you do backups. There is somebody in charge. I mean, I'm babbling, but yeah. It's really important to build the capacity for the network to adapt. Change is inevitable, and the bazaar model takes a very adaptable, flexible way of it. And the only way to do it is to see what is coming down the pike in terms of technology, in terms of research, in terms of learning. And I haven't put it down here, but learn from the past, to apply what you're seeing coming down to build a better future. Be prepared to implement your vision successfully in the near future. Prepared for it. You're doing it proactively. So that's kind of some thoughts here. And with that, I'm going to take the privilege of being the speaker to give you my personal ruminations. And the first 7 years of working here, we need all kinds of teams in state government. It's not one or the other. So we need star teams, we need peer teams, we need network of star teams and peer teams that lean both ways. You never have a peer. The problem is, or the issue is, that we have to, as state government employees, is to figure out which team is the right one for which project. That is the critical issue. And we have to be able to convince sometimes our managers, sometimes, I do not, the other powers that be, that this is an important consideration. And I think project managers are in a good place, right? Because you are dropped into it. Sometimes you're dropped in, sometimes you have the luxury of creating a team, picking a team. So that's the first thing. Pick the team structure that best works with the project in hand. We need governments, state governments, we need to leverage new organizational strategies hand in hand with modern technology, so that we are more effective in fulfilling our mission. I mean, this is not a secret, right? We are not very good users of technology, and we adapt. We do not accept or incorporate new things very easily. So the open source model, which is the Bazaar model, has been around for over 30 years. Because Linux, Wikipedia have been around for a long time. And yet that is not an organizational structure that governments have embraced. We talk about community, collaboration with communities and community outreach, but that this requires a Bazaar model is not something that people have put together. We still treat it as a cathedral model. We put resources aside and we reach out to a few people. But anyway, that's my little rant over there. And it's also important to remember that cathedrals and bazaars are not exclusive. A project can have a cathedral, it can be mainly a cathedral, and spin off some bazaars or some other cathedrals. Similarly, a bazaar can spin off cathedrals. And the example that comes to my mind is really old European towns. There were market towns. There have been markets forever because people needed to trade. And quite often cathedrals were built in market towns. Where cathedrals were built and there was no market, a market soon arose, because when people go to church, when people gather for a festival, they need food, they need clothing. There's a festival. There are all these feast days. You want to celebrate, you want to buy things, you want to shop, you want to visit. So bazaars always, and as I say in my note here, a thriving city, a thriving enterprise needs both cathedrals and bazaars. And so we should be prepared to pick the right one. See when it spins off a project that is different. A cathedral project could definitely spin off other cathedrals as well. So with that, I'll say thank you for your attention. I would love to hear your thoughts and what you have to say about cathedrals and bazaars and piers and stars and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, you will get the slides. I'm going to stop sharing so that I can actually see you. And I would love to hear thoughts. We have 15 minutes. If you feel like hanging on and talking about this kind of stuff, I would love to hear from you.
And Tiffany has shared some links to materials that Meenakshi had shared during the presentation as well. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thanks, Tiffany. Yeah. Well, if nobody has any thoughts or questions, we can definitely leave a few minutes early. We don't have to go to the bitter end.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Again, feel free to reach out to Meenakshi directly via email or Teams, I'm sure. And I will place a link to, oops, sorry. Do what I just did. I will be placing a link to a survey that we can complete in order to improve future PMUG presentations. And you can look for a follow-up email with links to resources. And please share with your team members and those who may not be on the PMUG listserv to reach out to me, Amy Croucher, to be added to that contact list. If you're interested in learning more about the business analyst processes or Agile Community of Practice, visit the BANG or Agile Community of Practice websites posted earlier in the chat, and enjoy the rest of your week. PMUG will convene again in July. Thank you so much, Meenakshi and Tiffany, for your assistance.
Thank you,
Take
everybody.
care.
Thanks for staying. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.